Okay, we're ready.
All right. I'm calling this meeting to order pursuant to section 50-14-1G of the official code of Georgia because of the public health state of emergency declared by Governor Kemp on March 14th, 2020, and renewed most recently on June 29th, 2020, due to COVID-19. And we are authorized because means have been afforded for the public to have simultaneous access to this teleconference. I am Mary Carol Cooney, chairperson of the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections, meeting for its regular July meeting, July 9th, 2020. And I'm joined this morning by my colleagues, Mark Wingate, Vernetta Keith Newridin, Kathleen Ruth, and Aaron Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, you have in front of you an agenda. Please take a moment to review it. And when you have, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we approve the agenda for the Fulton County Board of Registration Elections this day, July 9th, 2020.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we approve the agenda. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. The ayes have it. The next thing on our agenda, item number 2, is communications and responses from the public. Ms. Bodison, do we have any members of the public who wish to be heard? Ms. Bodison? I do not hear.
I think she's on mute, I think, because I can hear her talking in the other room.
Okay.
Yeah, she's muted.
Good morning. This is Regina Waller. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I do have a list of names. I will call them in order so that they can prepare once the first speaker is done. The first speaker is Aileen Nakamura, followed by Rhonda Martin and Garland Favorito.
Thank you. Ms. Nakamura. Ms. Nakamura, who seems to be on mute.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can now. Good morning.
I'm Aileen Nakamura, Sandy Springs voter and a Coalition for Good Governance member. Since many people wait until the last minute to vote in presidential elections, we can expect an unprecedented number of voters to show up on November 3rd. There were 2 areas of bottlenecks that led to long lines in June: the check-in process using poll pads and the voting process using BMDs. To keep voters checking in even when poll pads fail or lines get long, the easy solution is to provide updated paper poll book backups in every polling place. These paper poll books would be printed after early voting ends and include absentee and early voting statuses. The law calls this a certified electors list, and it would be used as the official record if there were a discrepancy or problem with the electronic poll book. In fact, a low-cost way to expand capacity and reduce wait times would be to add a paper poll book check-in station in every polling place. The other bottleneck is the touchscreen voting system itself, especially during this pandemic. The system is an expensive, large drain on polling places and poll workers, which severely limits the throughput capacity of polling places. The easy solution for this bottleneck is to use hand-marked paper ballots. First, the BMDs are so large that they're hard to socially distance, and the space needed for one touchscreen and printer can easily fit 2 voting stations for hand-marked paper ballots. Second, the BMD system requires huge amounts of electricity, limiting where and how many BMDs can be placed in any room. The placement of paper ballot voting systems is much more flexible with no electrical needs. Third, the BMD system requires many more poll workers who must stay close to help voters from beginning to end and wipe down touchscreens after every voter. With a poll worker shortage, paper ballots make much more sense. Fourth, voting on BMDs takes much more time than paper ballots, and check-in is slower when smart cards have to be made. Lastly, using hand-marked paper ballots would greatly reduce the labor needed for programming, LNA testing, transport, setup, monitoring, and shutdown. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nakamura.
Next, we will have Rhonda Martin.
Good morning, Ms. Martin.
Hello?
Can you hear
Good
me?
morning.
Good morning. My name is Rhonda Martin. I'm a Fulton County voter and a board member of the Coalition for Good Governance. Coalition for Good Governance is concerned that Fulton County's current plan to employ the Dominion voting system touchscreen machines in future elections will result in a significant shortfall of voting capacity and a repeat of the unacceptable long lines that we saw in June. CGG observers have been timing the voting process in polling places across the state, including several in Fulton County, where the new system was in use. Our data shows that a sustainable working average for a general primary or general election with a wide range of contests on the ballot is 12 minutes per voter from the time check-in is complete until the voter is ready to scan their ballot. This includes time for periodic cleaning of surfaces and for some voters to receive minor assistance. It does not include time for machine breakdowns or refilling paper trays. It should be noted that the 12 minutes also does not include time for voters to conduct the now mandated review of their ballot printout that, when done properly, could take an additional 5 minutes or more. So at 12 minutes per voter, one ballot marking station can process 5 voters per hour, or 60 voters in a 12-hour day. In optimal conditions, at optimal capacity, but without permitting time for the voter to review his or her ballot. Given this, the maximum election day turnout that can be supported in Fulton County is 24% of registered voters. If every voting machine is in a polling place and there are no machine breakdowns and every machine is in constant use throughout the day. This is far less than the general election day turnout percentages experienced in recent history. To avoid the voting capacity shortfall altogether, Fulton County could use hand-marked paper ballots counted by the Dominion scanners with outcomes audited for accuracy. If the better solution of hand-marked paper ballots is not chosen, then the State Election Board emergency paper ballot rule can be used to supply the additional voting capacity needed by creating overflow voting stations using appropriately spaced tables. Coalition for Good Governance urges you to plan and prepare for the use of paper ballots in upcoming elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Next, we will have Garland Favorito.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am a Fulton resident, career IT professional, and the founder of Voter GA, which has led the election integrity movement in Georgia for over 15 years. I want to highlight for the board and the election task force 5 largely unreported problems with the new ballot marking device system that was used in the June 9th primary and is planned to be used in the foreseeable future. Number 1, not one election day or early voter was allowed to cast a verifiable vote. All of the paper votes are accumulated from encrypted QR codes that the voters cannot read or verify. Number 2, no races were audited in the primary, and most will never be audited. Plans to use risk-limiting audits for a few races are invalid because the RLA inventor has already explained to Georgia officials why his procedures have no means for BMDs. Number 3, any recounts will also be invalid because the State Election Board created procedures to rescan the encrypted vote from the QR code and reprint previous unverifiable results, rendering recounts meaningless. Number 4, mail-in ballot adjudication teams in 5 counties uncovered a statewide scanning defect causing tabulators to fail counting thousands of vote marks that have clear voter intent and should have been included in certified results according to Georgia law 21-438 that applies to all types of voting. Number 5, election day and early voters are forced to cast votes on a type of system that national experts repeatedly told legislators is unsecure. And in fact, it's even been banned in Texas and Colorado, the same system that we're using. None of these 5 most critical problems in the June 9th primary were have anything to do with a virus or a coronavirus. Georgia's new voting system has not solved a single problem that was inherent in the old system, and the public will never trust this new system. Fulton County residents need a verifiable, auditable, and recount-capable voting system that can securely count all votes for Fulton County voters. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Favorito.
We have 3 additional speakers. Next, I present Ms. Bea Brown.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is Bea Brown. I'm an intern with the Coalition for Good Governance, and my concern is about the lack of privacy I felt voters had during the primary. As I'm sure you're all aware, the Georgia Constitution guarantees all voters the right to cast a secret ballot. However, when I went in person to cast my vote in June, this was violated for me and for those voting around me. Because of the proximity of the screens on the voting carts, the enormous size of the screens, and the way that the screens faced inwards into the room, those around me could clearly see what selections I was making, and I could have easily looked over to the screen of the person voting next to me, who was only about 6 inches away. Also, during the early voting portion of this election, I was a public observer at a couple of different locations in Fulton County, and I repeatedly noticed this problem where screens facing into the voting room made it impossible for some people to have their right to a secret ballot. For example, at CT Martin, the glass windows separating the voting room from the rest of the building allowed any member of the public to see some of the screens from outside the voting area. I can think of many situations where this could cause problems if someone was pressured by a family member or a coworker to vote a certain way and then had their vote clearly displayed to everyone in the room. However, I don't think these kinds of hypotheticals are even necessary because the law already charges you all as our election officials with protecting ballot secrecy. So I'd just like to conclude by asking you all what your plan is for August and November to make sure voters' right to a secret ballot is guaranteed. And thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Next, we have Mr. David Ross.
I have no comment.
Thank you, sir. We will go on to Ms. Cindy Battles.
Good morning. I actually had marked no for public comment, but I am curious to hear, and I know that you don't answer questions during public comment, but I'm hoping it's on the agenda, how you intend to staff the Hawks Arena for the upcoming runoff, and if you currently have enough poll workers, given that early voting starts in 10 days.
Stick around, Ms. Battles. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That concludes our public speakers at this time.
Okay. Thank you all. And I have written materials from some of you, and I think our other board members do too. Let's move on to item 3 on our agenda, which is the approval of minutes. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 meetings, the minutes of which we need to approve. You have all been provided drafts of those minutes, and we've made some corrections to them. We can take them singly, we can take them all together. Someone tell me what you think the pleasure of the board is.
Madam Chair, I make a recommendation that we take them all together.
All right. And that was the second that I heard from Dr. Ruth? Yes. So the motion on the floor is to approve the minutes of June the 9th, June the 11th, June the 19th, the executive session June the 19th, and the special meeting June the 29th. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. Thank you all. And that brings us to the monthly operations report for June. Mr. Barron.
Morning,
Good morning.
everyone. Okay, for the month of June, we had the June 9th election. We had 164 polling locations and each one of those had a minimum of 10 ballot marking devices. We had to extend polling operations until 9 p.m. In total, more than 100,000 voters cast ballots on election day. We started out the early voting period on May 18th with 5 locations. We ended up increasing that to 8 by the end of early voting. we had over 30,000 people vote early. Since June 9th, we've begun to contact many polling locations that were closed due to COVID to inquire about their interest in serving as locations later this year. We've also offered to pay for decontamination of the buildings in order to prevent the spread of COVID and to entice some of those polling sites back to us for August, and then looking forward to November. And there is another agenda item later that will talk more about the polling locations for August. We've started preparing for the August 11th runoff. We've been working with the internal working group led by that internal working group. We've been working with county manager and his executive team, and Chairman Pitts is also involved in that. We are using his team to help us determine ways to better use data to improve future processes. And then we have also met with Chairman Pitts' Citizen Task Force a number of times to give them information for them to provide recommendations that you will hear later in today's meeting. We have been training for early voting since last week, and we have also we will begin election day poll worker training today. Before election day training, we hired a number of individuals, former people that have done training for us, along with class assistants and some poll workers, to review all of our training materials and to make improvements on those training materials. And working with the county management team, we've been able to incorporate customer service training into those classes for the August election. And as I said earlier, early voting training began last week. We're going to have 19 locations for the August election. That will begin on July 20th and run through August 7th. Everyone's going through in-person training. And we've also added a component that runs them through some drills and tests to make sure that they can process voters in a timely manner. We are also partnering with State Farm Arena to create, if not one of the best early voting site in the country. For November, we'll be able to have about 200 BMDs down on the basketball floor. We'll have another check-in center up near the ADA entrance for disabled and voters 75 and older. For August, the State Farm Arena is giving us 197 staff for early voting, line managers, parking lot support, building ops, and for cleaning in the arena while voters are there, and also after voting shuts down each night during early voting. So the State Farm Arena is on board and supporting us greatly over there. They've also got their IT staff that they'll be loaning to us, along with security staff. So we are this morning, Sharon and some of the warehouse staff met with State Farm Arena, and we will begin delivery on the equipment for early voting starting Monday, and that will begin with State Farm Arena on Monday. We did a risk limiting audit with Voting Works, and it was in partnership with Secretary of State's office, and that turned out successful. We did that after the June 9th election. That was conducted on June 28th, and we will also be conducting some sort of an audit also for the November election. So far this year, we've received 138,455 voter registration applications. We received 28,563 in June, which, as you can see, dating back to 2012, is the highest number for June that we've ever had in Fulton County. We have 815,939 voters as of July 1st. 770,179 of those are active and 45,760 of those are inactive. We will be processing, we have 44,143 applications to process. That was as of July 1st. Those numbers are down as of today, and we should be completed processing all of the timely applications within 2.5 weeks. We have no felon hearings this month. We mailed 205 letters to voters who are suspected felons. Last week, or 2 weeks ago, the state election board approved early scanning of absentee ballots again through the end of the year. And so this will give us an opportunity to scan all of the ballots that we received prior to the general primary runoff and for the general election up to a week. We can begin that a week before election day. We will also be using our 20 absentee ballot drop boxes around the county. Originally, the state election board wanted us to pick up every day from those boxes. They have now told the counties that we can pick up every 3 days, depending upon demand. I think in the last week, they said we should be picking up from the ballot boxes every day. And we did it every day last time, and we will be setting a schedule between Nadine and Blake to figure out how often we are going to pick those up during the August election. The administrative division of the department, which includes the voter education team, since the COVID shutdown, we've continued to answer calls and inquiries, and we're working with Jessica about getting into some virtual demos to see if some of the events out there that are happening virtually will allow us to make a good use of the time because we've suspended live demos. And I think with the spike in COVID cases, we have decided to forego those for the time being, because it's possible now that the county may, I guess, start encouraging teleworking for many of the departments again. And so we're going to find out what direction we're going to go with regard to voter education. We are exploring a lot of options to reach out to educate the public, and we are going to be working again with Department of External Affairs. We are going to send out a training video to groups that would request it. This will demonstrate the Dominion voting system. We are also going to pursue production of a video that explains the vote by mail process. We were underway for that, and then Commissioner Ellis yesterday asked us if we could do that as well, and so we are getting together with Jessica's team to make sure that gets done. And with that, I can answer any questions on this monthly operations report.
Board members, now that I am unmute, any questions from someone who unmutes? I am not hearing any questions from, oh, Aaron. Okay, Mr. Johnson.
Good morning, Mr. Barron. A couple things. What are we doing as it relates to poll workers? We're having a lot of groups that want to sign up poll workers and poll workers. There are a lot of people that are saying that one of the issues that we had was the lack of poll workers, or just people want to be involved. So they have a couple of different options as to how to sign up. But what I consistently hear is that they're not getting responses. They go online to the portal. They sign up, they don't get a confirmation, they don't hear anything back. And one particular person I know did it a week ago and still hasn't heard anything.
Okay. I've assigned Brianna to help Johnny's team. Once we get those poll worker applications in, they're entered into the portal. We receive those. I've assigned Brianna and Kobe, who is on the voter education team, to work with Johnny's team with regard to getting some of these people. They are the main contacts for the civic organizations. And Jessica also forwarded, I think 568 names to them as well for the August election to get those people on board. If you do have individuals that want to work, that have applied, please get those names to Brianna so that she can get into the system and look at them, because we are getting so many applications right now in that they're trying to get through those right now between Johnny's regional coordinators and Brianna and Kobe. But individual names, we can make sure to get those people moved to the top of the list.
Okay. Great. That is very helpful. Also, did you ever, I think I remember you saying something about scanners that we had or needed. Is that included? And I'm sorry if I missed that.
I have requested from the state for more scanners. And I've told them that we will buy those additional scanners if necessary. But I also, in the discussion with Chris Harvey, told them that we would like the top of the line scanner, which is different. It's probably 4 times the speed of the ones that we have now. And I spoke to someone from Colorado yesterday who has seen those in operation and said they are far superior to the ones we're using here. I've also offered to purchase those as long as we can get the state to okay us doing that. So I have a call scheduled with the state again tomorrow, and I am going to follow up on those requests from the last call that we had with them.
Good, thank you. Also, this one should be an easy one, then probably a little harder one after that. One of the things you just mentioned with the drop boxes, you said that you have the ability the state is opening up the 3 days pickup from each location, and that you all were discussing whether or not to do what the schedule should be. I want to recommend, and if the board feels differently, they can surely chime in, but I want to recommend that we still maintain picking up every day. And for 2 reasons. Number one, security, just anything can happen between Tuesday and Wednesday. So we want to minimize even voters feeling like there's going to be a problem. Number 2, and correct me if I'm wrong, whenever you receive a ballot from someone, it's entered into the system and it shows as being received or processed. So one of the things that I foresee happening is, let's say you do the every 3 days and somebody drops their absentee ballot in on a Thursday. It may be Monday before they even know that it was received, and all during those days, based on what happened in June, I think a lot of people would be very concerned because in their minds, we're picking up a little more frequently than 3 days. So if I drop my ballot off on Thursday and it's Monday or Tuesday before I actually see it, all throughout the weekend, I'm checking every 10 minutes to make sure that my ballot has been received. So I would just contemplate every day as opposed to every 3 days.
Well, and I agree with you on that. I think the 3-day exception or the change was more for some counties. I think they didn't have people dropping off at their drop boxes in all 159 counties. We had ballots going into those every single day. So, and we have the personnel to go around and pick up from those in the teams that we've had. So I don't anticipate changing the everyday, but I just wanted to mention that the state election board did make some changes there.
Okay. I actually have another one, but this will be my last one for now. The privacy concerns, I've heard that a lot, and they're right. Even when I was down at especially when we were down at the South Service Center, you could literally stand in the hallway and see 2 rooms over a person's ballot by the way the machine was sitting against the back wall. And it was at an angle. If you're standing outside, you can literally just peek around into room number 1 and into room number 2 and see it. So what are we going to do to mitigate voters' concerns about their privacy? Because it is, the machines are standing straight up.
Yeah, and the way that these screens are much larger, much brighter than the old voting system. And they also, when you make a selection, it lights up the entire line rather than just putting a checkbox in as the old system did. So it does create issues. One thing that the company that we purchased the carriers from, they have come out with sneeze guards to attach to each of the wings in those, and they actually extend out, and they also increase the privacy at the same time for those. We are going, because of the fact that we need to be able to use all of the voting stations, it's going to be important for us to get these sneeze guards for that. And then they are opaque, so it will increase the privacy for each of the voters, as there will be an extension out behind them.
Okay, I will look forward to seeing that. Thank you.
And I've got an email of what they look like, so I'll send that to the board.
Okay.
All right. Let me remind our board members that item number 7 on our agenda is a discussion of what we're going to do for the August 11th election. Monthly operations report is a report on what the department has been doing. And item number 7 would be, we can debate what we are going to do. Not that any of Mr. Johnson's questions were not things that I wasn't interested in, I was. But anyway, we will have a full discussion of what we plan to do. But having said that, other board members.
I just have a question regarding the data sources that you mentioned, the data that you mentioned from the task force that you're using. Can you tell us a little bit about the data sources for that?
We're using voter registration data. We participated also in a program. Well, first, precinct information, the voter registration data for each precinct information. We participated also in a program for a while where we were keeping track of line lengths and wait times. We're using that data. We are also using past voter turnout data for early voting as well as for election day. We are going to try to incorporate also absentee by mail into that, although we've got basically one election with the new absentee turnout. So that's a little harder to incorporate right now, but we are working with, on the internal working group, there are several people led by Steve Struthers, who is formerly of Accenture, and he is developing some of these data strategies that we're going to be using going forward. And in fact, some of that is starting to come out right now as they've been able to go through. So we're going to use that for allocation of resources, as well as anticipated turnout and what we expect for early voting. So we'll be looking at projections as well from previous elections.
Great, thank you. And I'll save my other questions for when we get to new business.
Thank you. Any other board members wishing to ask questions now? No? Okay. That would conclude the monthly operations report. Thank you, Mr. Barron. To my fellow board members, 2 citizens have informed me that they signed up in time, but got overlooked for public comment. that would, at this point, require a waiver of our rules that someone other than myself has to make. Do I hear that?
Madam Chair, I move that we allow the two speakers to speak for public comment.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that we return to communications and responses from the public if those two people are there. Who is our staff person who has been helping us with that? Miss Waller, are you aware of those two people?
I have the names. I did not see them earlier, but I do have them now.
Okay.
All right. Let's see. We have Miss Shea Roberts.
I think it's Shea Roberts.
I think it's Shea Roberts.
Miss Shea Roberts.
Good morning. How are y'all?
Good morning, Miss Roberts.
Sorry, hold on one second. I lost my, oh, there. Okay. Appreciate y'all having me today. Before COVID-19 hit, protecting ballot secrecy was one of the most intractable problems with the rollout of the new system. The Dominion ballot marking devices violate ballot secrecy virtually every time they are used. The oversized tablets stand upright with bright screens and large type. The very features that make them easy for the voter to use also make it possible for anyone, voters, poll workers, watchers, public observers, anyone within 25 to 30 feet of the screen to see how you voted. The Georgia Constitution guarantees absolute ballot secrecy. Georgia law guarantees ballot secrecy and makes it one of the enumerated responsibilities of local officials who run elections. 21-2-370-13 requires you to conduct all elections in such manner as to guarantee the secrecy of the ballot. But in the scramble to create social distancing for the general primary, ballot secrecy was not protected for Fulton County voters. I cringed when I saw photos of your precincts in major newspapers. As a candidate, it's personal. While canvassing, I've met voters who assure me they will vote for me, but are adamant no one else can know that. It's a swing district thing. I think most Georgians take our right to a secret ballot for granted. Why shouldn't we? It's a right. Why should we? It's a right guaranteed in our Constitution and backed up in our statutes. It's also required federally through the Help America Vote Act. Protecting ballot secrecy while using the new voting tablets won't be easy. To handle Election Day turnout, you'll need every one of your 3,100 ballot marking tablets in polling places. In many precincts, you'll find it impossible to fit the required number of voting stations arranged in a way that supports social distancing and in a way that protects ballot secrecy. It's not optional. As you prepare for the August runoff and November general elections, please be sure that Fulton County voters are able to cast their ballot privately. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roberts.
Yes, next we have Ms. Marilyn Marks. Ms. Marilyn Marks.
Ms. Marks did, and she's welcome to unmute, stand up if she is here. She did send us all an email, I believe, this morning with an attached letter, which we can review. And unless I hear from her now, which I am not, thank you to the board members. Then we again conclude communications and responses from the public. That would bring us to item 5 on our agenda. As you know, our bylaws provide that the position of vice chairperson is one that is of a 1-year term and switches from someone representing one political party to the other. And it is time. I have to thank Mr. Wingate, who has been so supportive during his tenure, but needs to pass the baton. So do I hear a motion for a new vice chairperson?
I make a motion for Ms. Vernetta Nureddin to be the new vice chairperson.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. It has been properly moved and seconded that Ms. Vernetta Nureddin be our new vice chairperson. Ms. Bodison reminds me that the law requires that we have that we record the votes of everyone, and when we are not having an approval of the agenda or something minor like that, I will try to get in that habit. All those, well, Mr. Wingate, your vote.
Yes.
Ms. Nureddin?
Yes.
Ms. Ruth?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Cooney, yes. Unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Nureddin. I look forward to working with you. That brings us to item 6 on the agenda, and it is the presentation of task force initiatives and recommendation from the hardworking people who have brought themselves together to help us. I see that in our audience we have Mr. AJ Jane, and I understand that he represents what we would call Chairman Pitts' Citizens Task Force. Mr. Jane, do you have a report for us?
Yes, actually, I emailed the report to all the board members last night. I want to make sure that it was received by all of you because it's a document. It's not a PowerPoint presentation. It's a 12-page list of recommendations. So instead of going through everything in specific detail, what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about the committee, the process. This is what the report looks like. Thank you. And so first of all, I want to, if you can go to the next page, please. I want to acknowledge that one, yes. I want to acknowledge the task force members. To put this in perspective, for the first time, we met exactly 21 days ago. And during that time, hundreds of hours have been spent by members of the task force. And a tremendous amount of work has been done. And the support that has been provided by Carol on Chairman Pitts' staff and Janae on Chairman Pitts' staff has been instrumental. And also people from within Fulton County staff, from the County Commissioner's office, as well as the Executive Director of Elections, Rick, his office. It's been a very collaborative effort. A lot of work has gone into putting this together. So what we did was, because the task was voluminous and there was a lot that needed to be done, we made a decision to take the entire group and come up with subcommittees that focused on specific topics. And what you see on the list here are the subcommittees. We had communications, equipment technology, facilities, personnel, and absentee ballots. So this report that has been sent to all of you is presented in a fashion that is by these subtopics. And so for example, in absentee ballots, what we have done is we have taken recommendations that we believe are of strategic nature. And then there are recommendations that are extremely tactical in nature. So for example, if you can go to the next page. So for example, if there are the hiring of an experienced VBM manager, which is vote by mail manager, even for short term through November, whose job is to devote it solely to VBM from beginning to end. Additionally, hire sufficient staff dedicated only to VBM early with appropriate training on VBM. To us, it is more of a strategic move, as opposed to, for example, if you go to the next page, if you can go and then go to the very last one, utilize and promote 20 existing drop boxes. That's a very tactical move. So what we have attempted to do is, when you think about the process, there's 18, 20 people with diverse backgrounds, people that have, there are Republicans in the group, there are Democrats in the group, there are elected officials in the group, there are people that are not elected, there are citizens from the community. People have expertise in different areas. People are extremely passionate about whatever it is, the point that they're making. So it was a very interesting exercise in bringing together a lot of the disparate discussion points that people were making, and yet be able to bring it together in a coherent fashion that we can make these recommendations to the board. And it is, what I want to say is that these are unprecedented times. What we are facing are unprecedented times. I am sensing fear. I am sensing, just being out and about in the community, I am sensing concern from citizens, from kids, from adults, from elderly people. People are afraid. People are trying to do the best they can. And with that spirit is how we all came together. And what I am seeing, which is very encouraging to me, which is what I urge all of you to do, is that these unprecedented times are bringing unprecedented initiatives from us together. You don't have to have this document now for the time being, please. Yeah, so, these unprecedented times have brought together this unprecedented level of commitment and cooperation. So just take, for example, what we have seen with the Hawks partnership. That is significant. It was completely outside the box solution, and it is something that was needed, and it wouldn't have happened unless there was a commitment that we want to do something for the community, which is what I'm sensing. So these unprecedented times are leading to unprecedented cooperation and unprecedented effort, which is what I've seen in the task force, which is very encouraging to me. And I don't know if you have had the chance to share that one of our strategic initiatives was to forge a partnership with Atlanta Public School Systems to get schools to become our facilities, our precincts for the August election. And as of last night, there was an email that was received where Chairman Estevez and the new superintendent, Dr. Herring, they have agreed to provide APS schools as the facilities. This is the type of partnership that we have an opportunity to bring together. So I urge you, I urge the BRE, I urge BOC, I urge the election officials, Rick and his organization, Dick and his organization. I urge all of you to work together in unprecedented ways, because that is what is expected of us. That is why I did this. The reason I did this, the reason everybody in the task force did this, was so that we can make a difference and so that we can provide some level of calm to a very unprecedented environment. So I just want to share that with you. And it is with that intention that we did this work. It is simply to provide recommendations to you all so that you can decide what you want to implement and what you don't want to implement. So there are different task forces going around. I wanted to integrate all of this so that you had only one list to work with, but the decision was made by the internal task force that they are doing their initiatives and we should present this as a separate presentation. Then there's another task force that I'm hearing of. I don't know how many task forces are ultimately needed to address the issues. The issues are known. Fix them. Fix them. And where things fall apart is in the execution, in the implementation. And I can give you some insights into that just because of my industry background, if you would like, but that is not something that we have taken the time to articulate in this report. This report is strictly recommendations. There are process flaws, guys, in the system because of which things have not gotten done. They need to be addressed. But these are the recommendations. They are comprehensive. A lot of work is being done on these recommendations. And so somebody needs to go through each one of them, as I did on Monday with the internal task force. And I went through each one of them, and they helped me identify what are some of the recommendations that are already being addressed as part of their execution plan. I don't know the effectiveness of how effectively they will be executed, but the work is going on. So, I mean, I'm available for any questions. I did not want to go through these 12 pages of very specific recommendations. I mean, the communications plan is very comprehensive and it is extremely tactical. I think it'll be very helpful. I've shared that with the internal folks, and it's really up to how you guys want to do that. We are available as a resource. The community is available as a resource. You are seeing that. You are seeing that. You're seeing from the Hawks. You're seeing from the task force. You're seeing from APS. You're seeing that. Everybody wants to help in these unprecedented times. Take the help, please.
Mr. Jain, thank you so much. And I can see that there is a tremendous amount of work, and not just work, but wisdom that I see here. However, it was either last night or this morning, and for myself, it was this morning that we got this. We're going to need to digest this a little bit, but I have a feeling we're going to take you up on your offer. I would like to make one comment to the public tuning in that Chapter 3 or Item 3 is concerns staffing of our polling places. So that is something that we are going to have to address and have some help here on. But having made those comments, let me ask my fellow board members for questions or comments. And I hear none right now. There is another task force that one might call the county manager's task force or the internal task force. Mr. Barron, do we have a report from them?
We are going to be, we're going to be going through this report as well from the citizens group, as well as what we've been doing, and in speaking with the county manager yesterday, we are going to be making recommendations to the board soon. That ours hasn't been made final yet, but many of the things that are in here we are working on, and we will be bringing something to the board. And I hope to have something more concrete. We're going to have a special called meeting, I think a week from Monday, to approve polling location changes. So hopefully that we will have it ready for the board by then, and have incorporate some of these recommendations with what we're doing internally before that.
All right. And having heard that, I would like the board and the department to get to work on these recommendations immediately, and would invite a motion for a method of doing that.
Madam.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Hooker. I think you were about to say something. Okay. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion, if she is okay with it. Dr. Ruth and I were working on putting an action plan together from the board, and we can incorporate this information with it. it won't be done tomorrow, but the two of us can work to put the information together and give it to the board get the board's approval for working with the staff, if that is what you mean.
Is Ms. Perkins Hooker?
I just had a suggestion for the motion that you were looking for, Madam Chairman, if you would like to consider it. And that is that the board authorize Director Barron to move forward with working with the recommendations from the internal task force and incorporate, which we have done, numerous of the suggestions from the citizens task force, but let him go ahead and start doing it because he has been working diligently with the team internally to do some of these things now, and that he needed the formal approval from you all to do that, the authority to continue.
All right.
I mentioned what she said.
Pardon?
Everything she said.
Mr. Johnson?
I motion what Ms. Perkins Hooker just said.
Okay, which is, so a motion has been made to direct Mr. Barron to get to work on this, is essentially it. Dr. Ruth.
Yeah, with one exception for facilities tactical 2.2, 2.24, which says to go back to the normal polling locations that were successful sites. I am in agreement with that, except for senior living centers and nursing homes. As you know, those are still impacted, our vulnerable populations due to COVID. So for all of the others, I'm totally in support of, but just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
And thank you for pointing that out. That actually is an oversight on my part. That was pointed out in the meeting that I had with the internal staff on Monday, and I should have included that. So that is that needs to be reflected there.
Okay, and I think that it's probably enough that Mr. Barron has heard that, but we have a motion. Do we have a second on that motion?
And I second the motion.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that we direct Mr. Barron to work with these recommendations and those of the county manager's task force and get back to us as quickly as possible. And I'd like, well, that's the motion. I'm not going to add anything to that. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair, I am totally confused on what the position and reason for this motion is. Can you explain that, please?
Well, Ms. Perkins Hooker recommended that since Mr. Barron is working with one of the task forces, that we direct and authorize him to continue to do so. Is that approximately correct, Ms. Perkins Hooker?
Yes, and Mr. Wingate, the difference is that he'll have the authority to move forward with the implementation of the various plans in a week or two before you all get back. And he summarizes, is there things like trying to figure out what to do with the volunteers, how to handle the staffing, and making certain he's making the commitments for the locations, some things that can be done now while he's formalizing and finalizing the final proposal to you. We're just trying to make certain in the time we don't lose any, we don't lose anything that he could do in that time, short time frame.
Yeah, I guess, and that's fine. I guess I was just a little taken that it would take a motion from this board for him to take any and all information concerning these factors before going forward. I'm just kind of confounding to somebody like me. I would suspect that that would be the director's job, and that any input that he is getting at any time, you would certainly be taken seriously into consideration. And then anything, as he typically does, that is being done, then he is reporting that to the board. So I will just state on the record that I was just a little confused about why it required a motion. Thank you.
Ms. Nuruddin, do you need to unmute to speak to us? I guess you don't.
Yeah, I do.
Oh.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have a question about council's suggestion. I just have a question about Mr. Johnson's original motion, which was to synthesize this information with Dr. Ruth. Is that still going to happen?
Yes. Okay. Because the board, there are some things that we've discussed in that report that may not be reflected here. So.
And actually, I think that I have the authority to do this, and after Mr. Wingate spoke, it occurred to me that I would like to offer an amendment to the main motion to require Mr. Barron to report, and it can be by email on a daily basis, to Mr. Johnson and to Dr. Ruth, so that the board is fully informed and the board, through its delegates, can move this forward before things get to the entire board and require a vote. That I think I can do, because I don't think it's an amendment. It's not a main motion. Do I have a second? And I don't. Second. Oh, Mr. Johnson seconds it. All right, first.
Unmute real fast.
Pardon?
It was just hard to unmute real fast.
Oh, I appreciate that. All right, first we vote on the amendment. And we are clear on the amendment? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, so we have a main motion, which is a direction to Mr. Barron with an additional requirement that he report daily to Mr. Johnson and Dr. Ruth and Ms. Bodison. I will remember to do this and ask Mr. Wingate, how do you vote?
On
the main motion as amended.
Abstain.
Abstain. Ms. Newriddin?
Yes.
Dr. Ruth?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Cooney, yes. All right, the ayes have it. One dissent recorded. All right. Mr. Jain, once again, thank you. We now have a blueprint and a basis for going forward, which we very much appreciate your help with, and that of all of the citizens who took part in this.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 7, which is a discussion of August 11th election preparations. Mr. Barron.
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank Mr. Jain and Chairman Pitts for the Citizens Task Force and for all of those recommendations. As I read through them, I mean, there's some really good recommendations in there, and we're going to be able to incorporate those in with what the internal task force is doing. I know the board also gave us something to look at last week, so I'll be working with Dr. Ruth and Aaron going forward to get a detailed plan for the board soon. One thing that I just want to go over a few things for August. In addition, I think I said earlier that we're part of this plan that we're working on is we're beginning to outline specific functions where we need to have more data-driven ideas for voter registration, absentee by mail, early voting, election day, with regard to the polling places, equipment, staffing, and the project plan that we'll develop from that will serve as a guide for us for future elections. With regard to absentee by mail, we are sometime early next week, we'll be mailing out a postcard. Jessica is working on that in external affairs right now, and it will have encourage voters to vote by mail and also to vote early for the August election. There will be instructions on that postcard that will go out next week that will that will detail how to get an application to vote by mail and how to apply. All the mail that we will send from our Bluecrest machine downstairs, we will be able to track from our office to the voter, and we will work on that. Is going to be something going forward as well, to see whether the Bluecrest option that we have is good enough for the voters, or whether we need to add some other absentee ballot tracking. There have been some suggestions within the internal working group to use something that is more, I guess, more user-friendly on the web, on our website, so that the voters can track it easier. So we are working on that. We are also going to develop an online portal for absentee ballot applications, as well as developing an app for voters to use that will be specific to Fulton County. One thing, we're going to go forward with our own portal without regard to whether the state comes up with one, because we need to be proactive and go forward and get our own portal. I've spoken with the executive director at Vote at Home, and she said that Kentucky set up their online portal in 1 week, and that is Georgia should have done that before the big mail out went out for the June election, because she said it takes absolutely no time to set up an online portal. So we are trying to identify a vendor right now. I've submitted one recommendation to the IT director as after my conversation with the director of Vote at Home, and she's also we're going to have her also make a presentation to the internal working group preparation meeting next Monday. And I'm going to speak with her again this afternoon with regard to a comprehensive absentee by mail program for November, since we are going to probably receive somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000-400,000 ballot by mail applications. That's what we're expecting. We are going to be able to have a central facility in which we can process absentee by mail applications as well as mail them out. State Farm has offered space over at the arena. So we will be meeting with them to make those plans final for November. And for the August election, we are going to scan ballots over there that we receive. And right now we already have a team, an absentee by mail and a call center team downstairs behind Freshman's in the atrium, that they are ready to go to start entering applications when we receive them. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to have 11 more early voting locations for the August election than we had for the June election. So we'll have a total of 19 plus one outreach site in week 3. And the outreach site is going to be down at Palmetto Library in week 3. We are also going to be using State Farm as a mega site. And I mentioned the personnel that will be in play there. The Hawks and State Farm, they are excitedly on board for this. We are going to have on-site technicians for early voting. Those people will be trained on Monday. We are recruiting additional staff for early voting in order to anticipate that some, because what we found in June was we had 4 people that went out sick. And usually if they go out sick, we need to make sure that they get tested, which can, even if they feel better, it delays the time until we get the COVID test back to allow them into the polling place. With regard to election day, the county is already recruiting internally for workers that we are going to train to send out for election day sites. And we are identifying the numbers that we will need. We're going to recruit extra workers. We are also going to institute a plan to deliver lunches to all of the polling places on election day in addition to what, so that we can at least provide a meal for the people that are working, both for August and for the November election. So the next steps right now is the selection of polling site locations. We are going to have more locations for the August election than we had for the June election. That will be on the next agenda item. We're either going to have 174 or 175 locations for the August election. That will be up 10 to 11 locations from the June election. For November, we're going to try to decrease have a 5,000 registered voter limit for all of the precincts. And I had directed the staff at the end of last year to increase the number of polling sites to increase those throughout the year, so that by the time we got to November, we were up around the 210 to 220 mark. And so we are going to continue to work on that. The Department of Real Estate and Asset Management has engaged a vendor that is helping us to identify potential locations. We are also working with civic groups, the county itself, our Happy Faces, corporate temps, and also Halo Innovation Partners, to make sure that we have techs in every site in November as well as in August, and that we have more staff that we need. We're going to be putting together teams that can be out in the field to process provisional voters as well. We've identified a lead staff for August for absentee ballot processing and tracking. We are finalizing today the early voting operations for State Farm Arena. There's a meeting that's going on right now as this meeting goes on to make those plans final. We've already got a call center of 32 for early voting and absentee by mail for the August election. We will also be using that call center behind Freshman's for November. For election day, we'll be able to move back into the emergency operations center downstairs here in this building in order to have enhanced capacity for answering calls on election day and during early voting. We will have line managers at all of the polling places, as well as we're going to make sure that we have the survey tool that we've used in the past. We did not use that in June, but we are going to have that in place going forward in August and in November. And we anticipate there being a January US Senate runoff. We will begin mailing out absentee by mail ballots on Monday, July 13th. The applications that we have internally to process, they will be completed tomorrow. We have 1,761 applications. With regard to the state is mailing out ballots on the rollover list, which include voters that are 65 and over, as well as those that are disabled. They will be mailing out 24,690 Democratic ballots, 1,298 nonpartisan ballots, and then 10,697 Republican ballots. Republicans on that rollover list will receive a nonpartisan ballot. There are five races in this runoff, and those will be, let's see, 2 of them are nonpartisan. So any Republican ballots will get those 2 nonpartisan, and then there are 3 Democratic races as well. We will begin, we're accepting applications beginning Monday by fax, and mail a confirmation. Email will go live with a message on it to inform voters. That will be up on Monday, as I said. I talked about the polling places. We will have the technicians for early voting are going to be trained beginning Monday. I just received word from Johnny during this meeting that the poll pad vendor, No Inc., they are doing updates to the poll pads statewide. So our election day training, we can't begin that now until Monday. Their training was to begin today. So they are rescheduling the training that was to begin today, and they're going to move those people into the training schedule beginning Monday. As I mentioned earlier, I've assigned Brianna and Kobe to work with the outside groups and to secure and assign poll workers to Johnny's team. They're also going to do some pre-screening to try to figure out where the best place is for these people that are applying, where we should assign them. I mentioned also about the postcard for August. We're going to get the sneeze guards for the carriers that should increase privacy as well as safety for the voters in November. And then hopefully by Monday we'll get something to the board regarding the absentee by mail plan and how we're going to see that develop going forward for November. We've also, they have made an interesting proposal, and I've got a meeting set up this afternoon to talk about that with a few people. And I think all of the notes and presentation that I had, I think I've gone through all of that now, so I can take questions from the board.
Director, when will you update the training schedule that we just received the other day?
I will have Johnny get the updated training schedule to you today.
Okay.
Okay, I did have a question, Director Barron. If it's that time, is it that time, Madam Chair? I think you're muted, Mary Carol.
Thank you. I had thought that I'd recognize Dr. Root. Can we take Dr. Root first?
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yes, great. Thank you, Director Barron. So I need some clarification on the number of poll workers that we currently have right now in preparation for August.
I'm going to get you there are a few things that I'm going to send to the board. One of them is going to be I'll send you the equipment allocation, which will also be the allocation for the number of poll workers that will be in those sites. And then I will get you the current numbers for each of the precincts that we have assigned as of today. And I'll put that into an email today for you.
Okay, and then I want to go back to Aaron, Mr. Johnson's comment earlier around a number of poll persons who are interested in being poll workers. And so training is already starting, is that correct?
Yes, it will begin Monday.
Okay, so I think between today and Monday, it's really imperative that we begin calling those persons and getting them involved in the process so that they can be part of the training. August is our playoff. And so we have to get this right in order to win the championship in November.
Right.
And I also wanted to ask about the mega site, State Farm. How many BMDs are you hoping to have set up in August?
We're going to have 100. We're going to divide that between the main floor and the ADA entrance. That way we can get an idea of what we need to do for November. So we aren't putting the full complement out that we'll have in November, which should be 200 down on the floor. And another 50 to 60 upstairs. But this will give us an idea of how we can develop the voter flow going for in August. We'll be able to develop that voter flow and the logistics for both the upstairs check-in and the one that will be down on the basketball floor.
Okay, great. And I really was pleased to hear that you're having that top portion allocated for seniors and persons with disabilities, because it can be very challenging getting down to that floor, the main
Yes,
floor.
and as I mentioned, I think earlier, that we're gonna have free parking. The Hawks staff is gonna be make sure everybody knows where to park and be directing that. MARTA is also going to be involved. They are going to reopen that station that's right there next to State Farm Arena to enable voters to get there.
Okay. And then on-site techs, how many on-site techs are you planning for in these?
Well, we're going to have one in each of the polling places, and then we're looking to have 3 on site at State Farm Arena for this election. And then for election day, we're looking to have one per polling place on election day. One thing that they will do is we will have the techs meet the poll manager the day before the election and get everything set up. They will then, a poll official and a tech will then be back at 3 in the morning on election day to get everything set up and turned on and make sure that it's up and ready for the poll workers when they come in. So all of that setup for the equipment will occur before the poll manager even arrives on election day.
Okay, and then my last comment is I think it's really important, given the task force recommendations, they have a really robust communication plan. I think it's important that we use this as a trial to increase education among voters and getting information out to them quickly. So I really hope that you would provide us with a communication plan for the August election.
Yeah, Jessica and I will make sure to get, as you said, we'll test it for this election, but we will definitely have a communication plan for November election as well.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Ruth. Ms. Nuruddin?
Yes, how you doing? I have two, and everything has been great today. I think we're on the right track. And I have 2 comments about privacy when voting. I wanted just to share with everyone and the director, as you begin your poll training, there were, in my experience, when I went to vote at West Manor Park, I just suggest that the poll manager, the poll workers that are assisting voters, because I do recognize, at least when I went to vote, that there were folks who wanted someone there to help them kind of through that process. So I suggest that the poll workers always keep their back to the screen of the voting machine, and when they're helping or assisting, and then to use exact verbiage, may I assist you with voting? Do I have your permission to assist you? I saw a poll worker actually take the card and insert it for a voter and stand. Another poll worker who thought that I might have needed that same type of help kind of hovered for a little bit. So I didn't actually let him see any of my process, but I know that it was really coming from a good place. He really just wanted to help. And so I think that essentially it was a good place that he was, that he was wanting to help, but that privacy is just nowhere around that. So when other voters think that voters their privacy is being hampered or hindered, then we get reports that we got today. Also, I wanted to ask that you consider portable curtains I know that you're going to have the extensions that's going to, the extension that's going to kind of shield, but just consider portable curtains on wheels. And the way the voters were lined up, when you can see the BMDs that's facing the line. So perhaps when they line up, they can enter in from the side of a curtain and then turn to vote. And so those were just my 2 comments there. For the screen readers, I wanted to ask, are screen readers available at every poll?
Screen readers?
Right, for people who are visually impaired.
Oh, yes, those are available, yes.
Okay, and they are.
And you can also magnify the screens can be magnified as well.
For our blind voters, because I thought that they were going to be built into the equipment.
Oh, well, we have at least 2 ADA units in every polling place, and those have a disability device that goes along with those that can read the ballot to the voter.
And then those particular machines are in a secluded area for the
those devices are they use a headphone, and the 2 station carriers have the disabled devices on them.
Great. And then the last thing, I did receive a letter from a voter saying that a blind voter had challenges and ended up having to wait for a screen reader. So hopefully during that check-in process that we'll just confirm that every poll has that ADA device. I know that we had a lot of things happening on June 9th, but moving forward, just be considerate of just asking your staff to make sure that we have enough of those, or that each poll has at least one. And lastly, I'm looking at, which I'm going to forward to the board in a second, a concern from the captain of the South Fulton Democrats, and he expressed, and I just wanted you to share with the people who are listening. He expressed that there were issues with setting up polls for the early vote for June 9th and suggestions for polling. And I was hoping that you can share because we're talking about partnerships, and thankfully we got this great partnership with State Farm, and I'm excited about that. I just want, his concern was he felt that, some people, like for instance, Chairman Pitts has you 2 on speed dial, so he has easier access to you. How would a community group, a church, can you give some advice on if they had some information on setting up a poll, who would they contact?
Oh, if they have recommendations on setting up the polls?
Right, just who can contact?
They can, through Monday, they can contact Blake. And then after that, we can refer them to Dwight, who will be back through the end of the year.
Thank you. That's it.
All right. Further questions from board members?
I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am. I have a couple. Mayor Carroll, can anybody hear me?
Oh, she's frozen.
Yeah, Mary Carroll's frozen. We can.
Oh, I see now. But Rick, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. She should be right back. I'm gonna go ahead. Training. One of the things that we've been talking about, and I appreciate Dr. Ruth bringing up, because I was going to bring it up as well. We have several people who say they want to be poll workers, but they haven't been contacted. So all the people that I have, I'm going to get those to you today.
Okay.
Just to make sure. I've already sent some over, so I'll try to send the rest of them over today. And if we can get these people signed up, because Monday, is coming pretty quickly. Also, as it relates to training, are we including, one of the recommendations in the conversations we had was about customer service training. trying to increase our training with the poll workers as it relates to customer service, because we know there are a lot of little things that voters standing in line, if with the proper customer service, it makes the line a little better. And I always use the example of Chick-fil-A. No matter how long that line is, people will get in that line no matter, just because they know they're going to get great customer service once they get up to the front. So I think that's where we need to be. So is that being included?
Yes, that is included in early voting training, as well as now we're incorporating it into the election day training. We've been working with the internal working group and with human resources about getting that training into the election day training program.
Okay, please make sure that's included also. But I do have a question about State Farm real quick. And I know the facility a little bit, and I just want to be sure, because we're talking about bringing disabled voters and seniors to this facility, but I want to make sure that it works for them. So when you say they're going to be upstairs, is it going to be on the side where that's between the International Convention Center and State Farm? Because other than that, I don't know any other convenient entrance into the building.
There is, well, now anybody will be able to vote at either location. We're
Right.
just gonna have, there is an entrance that has a ramp. And let's see, when I was in there, I believe that the entrance you're talking about is the one where that ramp is. And so there will be a check-in, there will be check-ins and machines up there. And then, but if somebody wants to vote down on the floor too, there will be entrances down there for people to go to. And we will have, they will be able to direct people to whichever site they want to go to.
Okay.
But we wanted to have another site up at that entrance.
I just wanted to make sure we're contemplating, let's say a church downtown brought a bunch of seniors, or a senior center brought a bunch of seniors, someplace that they could park and it's actually convenient for them to walk into the facility.
Right.
Granted, I get they can go to any of their early voting locations, but I do know with a lot of airtime being given to State Farm Arena, they're going to try to come to this facility. So
Right.
I just think we need to think about how people are going to go in and come out. How many scanners are we going to do? Backup scanners at each location?
We are ordering right now another 150 precinct scanners. So that'll bring us up to right around about 500 or 498 scanners, I think. So we've contacted Dominion about purchasing more scanners, and that purchase is going to be made here within the next few days, and they can get those to us quickly. So we will have backup scanners at all the locations, yes.
Okay. And one last question, something you said earlier that I ended up getting a text message about, but just to be clear, so for voters who are coming in that voted in the early, you mentioned that if you had a Republican ballot before, then you end up getting a nonpartisan ballot for this election, correct?
Correct.
If you had a Democratic ballot, you would end up getting a Democratic. Now, is it possible for people to switch?
No,
If you've already voted, no.
no.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, you know, on here, it's because that question did just come to me. Who, if you did it before, but if you didn't vote in the primary before, you can get either ballot, a nonpartisan or a Democratic ballot.
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
we have a matrix that we've put together for the poll workers and for them to know how to assign those ballots.
Okay. All right. I think that's it for me for now. Thank you.
I think
All right.
we lost Mary Carroll. So
All right, Vanetta, you're the vice chair now.
That's right.
What's next on the agenda? I think I don't start till January, but Mark, you want to jump in?
No, Madam Vice Chair, you are
No,
currently the Vice Chair.
it's you now, my dear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's go on to item number 8, if there are no more questions.
Okay, we've got item number 8 is going to be done by Nadine and Blake. Although oh yeah, Blake's on here. Nadine, Blake.
I'll let Nadine, you can take the lead on this. Is there a document that we can show on the screen while we're going through?
Do you have that document, Mariska? The polling place document?
I am having a lot of technical difficulties over here. I'm on my work cell.
Okay.
Mr. Dollar, I'm going to send it to you, please. Thank you.
I'll pull mine up personally so I have it.
Good morning. I'm trying to pull mine up as well.
You email it to me, I'll pull it up.
Absolutely.
Rick, while they're doing that, this may be a premature question, but I want to go ahead and ask it if it's all right.
Okay.
The City of Atlanta, APS, we got notification that they're going to allow us to use the facilities now. Is that going to affect the voting here today?
Yes, we are going to use their facility for August. Yes, and they had already confirmed for November because that day, election day, the schools are not in session for November. So it was generous of APS to make that happen. I know Fulton County Schools had done that. So we appreciate all of the effort that APS went through to make this happen.
And also, so while Nadine is pulling up her list, what the ones we're going to go through today are the way that in talking with Director Barron and Nadine, that the way that we would like to do this is to provide this for information to the public today, information for the board. And then what we would like to do is submit an advertisement following this meeting of the changes, unless the board has any concerns about any of them. And then have week after next on the 20th, so 3 weeks and 1 day out from the election, have the board meet for a special election after these changes have been advertised to officially approve the changes if that works for everyone. That would give us the time to be able to advertise them. We were anticipating that that we were not going to be able to use APS schools. Now, fortunately, as has already been mentioned, we are going to use APS schools, and it's very generous, very helpful that we're going to be able to do that. So we will be keeping those schools. So rather than having 2021 changes, it's going to be more like 10. And as Nadine goes through these, you'll notice that a lot of these changes are attempts for us to assign fewer voters to polling locations in order to prevent lines. As Director Barron mentioned in the operations report, Nadine and her team have been working very diligently to go back to locations that had COVID concerns and offer decontamination services to them, and to see what their sense was and their feeling was for having us back for August and November. So that'll be some of the changes that Nadine will discuss. And then also we have had some libraries that were under renovations that are now opening up again, that we have the opportunity to move back to. So Nadine, are you at a point where you can start going through these?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Okay, I apologize for the delay. For the first proposal will be number 41.2 for Park Tavern. We're going to be relocating precinct 028 and 02L1 to Piedmont Park, Magnolia Hall. Now, that is actually pending at this point. We are doing that to reduce the number of voters that went to Park Tavern, to reduce the long lines that were at that location. We currently have another team looking into perhaps getting a different location to actually separate that in two. But if they do not find a relocation point for 02A and 02L1, they will be going to Piedmont Park, Magnolia Hall. And that will be proposal 41.2. For the next location, Liberty Baptist Church, St. Luke's Episcopal has allowed us to come back to the church if we decontaminate, and we will be relocating precinct 02B, 02L2, and 05D back to St. Luke's, which will be proposal 42.2. For Butler Street Baptist Church, precinct 06F, Ponce de Leon Library has completed its renovations and will be returning the precinct to Ponce de Leon Library. For precinct 07D at P Street Presbyterian, Buckhead Library has also completed renovations. We'll be returning that precinct back to Buckhead Library. That'll be proposal 44.2. For precinct 08D at Morris Brandon Elementary School, Northside Library has completed its renovation. We'll be returning that precinct to Northside Library, which will be proposal 45.2. For precinct 10C at CT Martin, we will be relocating 10C to Old Adamsville Emergency Shelter to reduce the lines at CT Martin. And that'll be precinct 46.2. For precinct JC04A, B, and C, which is currently at Messiah Lutheran Church, renovations have been completed at OC Library. We'll be returning the precinct to OC Library, which will be proposal 47.2. For precinct JC12 at Dalvin Elementary, the renovations have been completed at Oaks Library, so we'll be returning the precinct to Oaks Library. That'll be proposal 48.2. And for South County 21 Christian City Welcome Center, we'll be relocating those voters to Oakley Elementary School to decrease the lines of Christian City. The Union City voters will remain in Christian City, but the SC21 voters will be relocated to Oakley Elementary School, which will be proposal 48.2. And finally, for precinct SSO1, Johns Creek Environmental Campus, Life Center Ministries has allowed us to return if we decontaminate the church, and that'll be proposal 49.2, and we'll be returning SSO1 to Life Center Ministries. And that concludes. Oh, I'm sorry, we have one more. I'm sorry, that does conclude the precinct proposal changes.
Then I'll get together with Mary Carroll to schedule a special called meeting to get those, because right now we have, Nadine, aren't we looking at several other sites in order to, or is that is it?
For the August 11th election, that would be the total number of changes, but we'll be looking at additional changes for November.
Okay.
And then, so that gives us 174 locations. It could increase to 175 if JLL, which is the real estate firm that the county is working with, if they can find another alternative for O2A and O2L1, that would increase the number of locations up by 1, because then we could split those so that O2A will be at its own location and O2L1 would be at its own location. And we should know something, that they're working now on that, so I would expect to know something by next week. They're very aware that we're on a tight timeline.
Thank you.
Thank you, and my apologies for disappearing. I lost my internet. Sounds like I wasn't missed. Any questions or comments from board members? No, no.
Yeah. The only request I have is that once these are approved, can we get the listing sent to us, please? Guess not.
Yeah, we're gonna bring those back for formal approval to the board, I think a week from Monday. And then, yes, we will get you a full list.
All right. Anyone else with a question? Hearing none.
Mary Carol, before you
disappear,
entertain a motion for either executive session or adjournment, I would just like to say I want to wish Blake Evans good luck in his next. He will begin working for the Secretary of State's office next week. So I personally have enjoyed working with him, and I just want to wish him good luck going forward.
I think I can speak for the board in saying we join in that wish and ask that he put in a good word for us from time to time.
Thank you very much, Director Barron and Ms. Cooney. Really appreciate that and look forward to continuing to work with Fulton County, although in a different capacity, but very much looking forward to continuing to work with Fulton.
I got your cell phone number.
Absolutely.
On that. All right, having done that, there is one, is there any member of the board who wishes to go into executive session to discuss personnel or litigation matters? And hearing nothing on that, there are several requests for some of the written material that we looked at this morning, in particular, the Citizens Task Force report. And do we have an answer as the best way for them to access that?
Well, what I'm going to suggest to Jessica is that we post it on our website. We can get that posted today.
And what is the website address?
FultonElections.com.
Okay. I hope you all heard that and that you can access that. That being so, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. But
before
first,
we adjourn, that just gave me an idea, a thought. And I just want to throw this out to Jessica. I don't know if she's on, and Rick, maybe you can talk to her. But with external affairs, is it possible to put elections information on the front page of the Fulton County website? Because even today, there were several people that were trying to get into this meeting and trying to get information, the agenda, things like that. They were going to the Fulton County site and they didn't realize that Fulton Elections has a direct site. You know, I understand that you could go to Fulton site, go to departments, go to elections, etc. But just, you know, maybe a corner that is dedicated to elections information where you don't have to necessarily put it. And it may be there, but I just want to throw that out.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and good morning, board members. If I could take just a moment, we do post, just for your awareness, we do post every election board meeting on the homepage. There is a lot of information there, and as we are kind of, some of the things that we've talked about today are being finalized, we are posting more and more information. Certainly, I agree that we need to, this is one of the most important things happening in Fulton County right now, and you will see in the next few days some additional information. I want to thank the task force for their strong recommendations on communications. We have read through those very thoroughly, and we are working to begin implementation of many of those things. And again, what you will see in the next few days is a lot of activity about the early voting locations that have been finalized, absentee ballots, the mailing that Mr. Barron talked about earlier, the meetings such as this one, and we will certainly welcome any feedback as always. But thank you. We will try to make that more prominent and share those links with you.
All right, thank you, ma'am. With unless somebody else has something, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we adjourn. And if we make it unanimous, we don't have to go person by person. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed. It is unanimous. You may record that. Thank you all, and thank you to our participants.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Thank you.